Japanese artist Osamu Sato rejected the idea of video
Don't know
games.
what that means, first of all.
What?
Which-
That doesn't
I
mean
reject.
anything.
No way.
Yeah.
You can't do that. Welcome to New Game Plus. This is a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name is Kenny.
I'm Nolan.
And this is episode 439, and it is a producer poll!
Hey.
It is the final pool of the summer pool party and the summer of weird.
It's really sad, honestly. It's my favorite thing that we do.
What do you think is the weirdest game that we played as a part of the summer of weird?
That's a good question.
Outside of this one?
Yes, outside of this one, we'll see
Okay.
if this one is a competitor.
Man, not the Kirby one. That one's strange for Kirby.
No, but
it's,
weird.
It's,
yeah.
It's palatable. I feel
Plock was pretty weird.
like Plock
Oh,
That's
that
my
might be a
answer.
contender.
is Plock.
But we also played Killer 7, which is
I
probably
know.
my answer.
Oh, no, that's my answer.
Mine's
That's
still
easily
Plock,
my
but
answer.
like some of these games, yeah, the community delivered when they decided. By the way, they decided it was the summer of weird, and we were like, okay.
Well, I think because it naturally happened, and then they were like, I guess
Right.
we must continue.
They kind of acknowledged it and then ran with it. It was great.
Before we talk about the retro game of the week and determine if it fits into the theming of Summer of Weird, which you might be able to tell by the title of the game and the episode, question of the week. What's the most amount of money that you've spent on one game?
Okay, this
Can
is
we
a
just
this is a
not?
mean
Y'all
question.
I want everybody to listen
This
right
is a
now.
mean question.
You've got two guys that are
Stop it.
immediately flustered.
Stop it. You
I'm
did this
chilling.
on purpose. Yeah, you're chilling
I'm
because you're
chilling.
not guilty like we are. You know both of our answers already. Okay. This is loaded.
I'm not asking the game, although that will come up. I'm asking how much you spent on this game.
Well,
I
the game in question has a tool online that if you put your name in, it will tell you how much you spent on.
Kenny would not go and look at that.
I doubt it.
I don't know. I don't know if that's actually my highest spend on
Nolan.
games.
Oh,
what if
wait.
it's not?
Really? You go
There's
first.
a there's a few contenders. No, I don't know which is first, and I'm not sure. I don't know an exact figure. I know it's high enough that I'm embarrassed by it and don't want to admit it, but it's a lot less than a lot of people have spent. I have broken 3 digits, but I haven't broken 4 on any single game.
You've broken 3 digits. Okay, so we're talking in the hundreds for those of you that don't know elementary math. But he doesn't think that he's broken $1,000 on any one game.
I'm fairly certain that's.
He
fairly
just doesn't want to say
certain
the
is
numbers.
insane.
They're cuss words.
I know.
I'll tell you. I've spent $630
Oh my goodness.
on a game.
And
I
is it a
don't
game
think-
that laughs out loud?
It's a game that rhymes with Brig of
Pigeons?
Trojans.
In fairness, the way their tool works, Nolan, I don't think that directly equates to raw money spent.
What is that?
There's promos, there have been giveaways, there are things that get lumped into that
I
category
guess.
of like RP
Yeah, I've
or
been
So
given
whatever
maybe
gift
$25
overtime.
then?
But you've probably spent $500 still.
And it's a free-to-play game, which is the depressing part.
Right.
Now, PoE is free-to-play, but I give them money too. But
Oh, you do?
I don't know how much I've given. Yeah, they do supporter packs, and I want to support that game more than any other game. But yeah, it's
League
it's-
PoE, and the one that I put some money into that neither of y'all played was Hearthstone.
Oh,
Early days.
really? You buy the
Back when it
cards?
Back when it first dropped.
It was so pay to win back then.
It was pay to save so much time.
Yeah.
And I wasn't about to grind it out. And I normally don't mind that, but
Oof.
Kenny, did you say the game, or does it also rhyme with?
I think it's probably also League, but I'm not certain. I don't think my League spend is quite as high as Nolan's, but I don't remember.
Those skins, dude.
But both of those others I put a little bit of money into as well. But again, like these are games we've played for years and years. It's
Yeah, it's
not
not a
like
one-time
Why are you,
person.
no one's
sat
asking for you
down
to make
and
an
spent-
excuse. Yeah, I mean,
No,
it's
no, no.
fine.
I'm just like
Shut up, dude.
contextualizing.
World of Warcraft, that was the only game I've
Yeah.
ever played that needed a subscription. But here's the thing. Here's the caveat there. Now, you can call the police on me, but I sold my account after I was done with it. So I played for a year. So I spent about $100-something on it.
Yeah.
But then I sold it for $120. So, like, did I even spend any
Did
money
you
on
even
it
play
is the
it?
question. Did I even play it? Did I redeem all my
It was-
time?
it was
It cost you some things. It may not have been money,
The zero
but there was cost.
So if it's not that, then literally it's just like a newer game, Final Fantasy 16 maybe, simply because it's more expensive
they're like $80
than
now.
other
'Cause
games, right?
Games are just expensive anymore.
Yeah. Ugh.
You've never done any like cosmetic type purchasing at all?
Yeah, I mean, even on League of
Legends.
Legends, we like I bought a few, but like less than $50 worth. you know.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And also,
A
I
moo-moo.
feel like that's a newer thing. You play new
I
games,
wish-
but you play single player
I
games for
wish-
the most part. So it's like
Yeah.
that pay model doesn't reach you.
Kenny just wants to play League with me.
I
Right now.
want
love
you
that.
to play League
I would
again
install
because
it.
Nolan and I would join you.
It's already
I
installed.
We would
don't.
absolutely play.
And maybe if we quit spending so much money on video games, we could buy things we actually need. Like, for example, I had a dream about owning a house. It was Surreal Estate.
That's ridiculous.
Like in our no, it's really good. Like in our retro
That's
game of the
ridiculous.
week, LSD.
He sets up the game LSD by saying, "We're gonna buy things we really need."
Yeah.
Dream Emulator.
Overview.
LSD, Dream Emulator, often incorrectly called LSD Dream Simulator, is a 1998 exploration video game for the PlayStation, released exclusively in Japan.
Well, it's an exploration game.
Oh, one where you explore.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Some could also probably label it a walking simulator, which you might be a little bit more familiar with since that is still a genre. I
Yeah.
think they're intertwined
Yeah,
to
yeah,
some
yeah.
degree.
Okay.
Could we say that it's a maybe it's a dream emulator?
No, too specific, and also the title. This game was developed and published by Asmic Ace Entertainment, I believe is how you pronounce it, and was selected as our producer pool party, probably to the applause of all of the rest of the producers that put in a game that they loved,
Love and adore.
quality, and,
Childhood
you know,
favorite.
have a lot of experience
We're
with.
gonna play it for
We-
2 weeks. I can't wait for
We
my hand to get
just
cold.
gave a
Played
shout
it
out.
for 2 weeks.
We just gave a shout out to the fact that it's our summer weird,
Yeah.
and we're doing our producer exclusive hot
Yeah, the
pool, hot
commitment's
tub
real.
after
Hot pool?
party.
Hot pool? Hey, y'all want to take
Yeah,
a
we-
dip in the hot pool?
We just became soup. It's the end of the summer of weird. It's fitting.
Retro Man was the person that submitted.
Hey, never
this
submit
game.
again.
And the game. Well, let's. I want to do a few things. One, let's talk about the title. LSD
Yeah.
Dream Emulator. I want to be clear
Okay.
from the start that although you might think that this game is, and it often is, incorrectly labeled a game that has to do with or is affiliated with any kind of way to the drug LSD,
Yeah.
you would be incorrect. It is there is Kenny's gonna argue, I can tell by his bearded face, but there is no lysergic acid diethylamide, and you know what I'm talking about, Nolan. Simply because of
scientist.
science, yeah, not drugs. There's none of that here, and there's not even any intentions here. Really, the title after the colon, some would call it the subtitle. Actually, I still think it's a part of the title. Is what this game is about: the Dream Emulator.
Do you know what an implication is, Dustin?
Sure.
I've heard it.
I mean, come on. You're right.
Yeah,
Technically, you are right. It's called a dream emulator, but let's be
this game is trippy.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not
And
overtly like a game that is condoning or showing or doing anything overtly drug related, but the name in the title is an overt reference to the drug, And the reason it's there is because they wanted people that were tripping to put this on and play it.
Correct. But what you just said was the same thing I did, in that the game has nothing to do with it. The game has nothing to do with the drug LSD.
Yeah, because they get in
period.
trouble probably.
No,
LSD
because
standing for
that's not what the game
lethargic
is about.
super dialysis.
My understanding is that LSD, that part of it, came way late and simply for marketing purposes. And Kenny, you alluded to that, to get the people that would maybe vibe or be interested in more of a psychedelic dreamscape type of experience to purchase and play this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. The name in the title is an overt reference to the drug.
Yes.
But the game itself is not about or encouraging or doing anything drug related. It's just a bridge between people who would take the drug, telling them that they would like this game.
I have less of an issue with that and more of an issue with the creator or the person who thought of this game
Osamu
being
Sato?
a pretentious idiot.
Wow. Well, no, I mean, he just doesn't like video games.
So I'm gonna make
he's bad at them.
So I'm gonna
partly.
But that's the thing with some of the art people. It's like,
some of the art people.
I don't like the idea of video games, but I'm gonna use your tool to make a video game, and because I'm better than you.
So, Japanese artist Osamu Sato rejected the idea of video
Don't know
games.
what that means, first of all.
What?
Which
that doesn't
I
mean
reject.
anything.
No way.
Yeah.
You can't do that, at least not successfully. And so, like Nolan just said, he then used the mode of video games by creating an experience on a disc for the PlayStation. All of these are video game related.
AKA a video game.
In order to in order to reinterpret gaming, I guess, or to provide a new medium for creating contemporary art.
That's fine.
His goal was to be an experiential art piece that you play through a gaming console, but that is not a game that was inspired by this idea of being inside a dream. In fact, they took a lot of their inspiration from an actual dream diary,
dream journal,
that one of the developers had kept for years and years. Not
interesting.
Not Osamu Sato.
Okay.
But just somebody else, and then based a lot of what they did off of excerpts from that diary, which is
I'm fine with that second part of what he was saying. It's like, I want to do this on the PlayStation. Just don't be like, I'm not making a game, I'm making an art experience. Like, dude, no, all you did was you did something kind of cool. You made a newish genre at the time, but I just reject you.
You've never met an artist before, Nolan? Because
I've met plenty, but this is a certain type of artist, and who I'm talking about.
You missed the part where he just rejected them, and so now they don't exist.
I reject you, Osamu Sato.
Yeah, you're right. So being a dream emulator, there is no plot per se, no story. However, I did find a translated version of the manual, of the booklet, and there is a prologue. So I'll just read that to you.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
I really want to know this, actually.
You might change your tone. This is what the prologue says in English, verbatim. It's time for a change. CD-ROMs for the entertainment Brace Station. He had 4. It's a great place to be. Read this statement carefully before using this. Use. The company. A place to wake up. Flowers. Please contact us for more details. For inquiries about contents, countermeasures, etc. You. I can't do it for you. Soft.
I actually love that so much.
Why do you love it, though? You don't love it. You hate it.
You reject it?
You hate it.
I reject it, but I love it.
We now have a bonus episode exclusive for those on Patreon.
Episode is not an over-exaggeration. It's a full episode.
And it's an episode that you get to be a part of.
Yeah, it's called Expansion Pack, and semi-regularly you get to be a part of the conversation, and we're going to debate, and we're going to scream at each other.
We're gonna talk about
Have
video
arguments.
games. Yeah, we're gonna scream mostly though. That's kind of the point of it.
Yeah, it'll be like goats.
You roast us, we roast you. Find out more information at patreon.com/NGP podcast.
Gameplay.
I like walking sim better than exploration game. I know that's technically what it's categorized as, but walking sim does make a lot more sense because it's a very literal description of what you do in this game. And Dustin's first play, just kind of, I hadn't played the game at the time when I watched it, and it told me a lot about the game just in the first couple of seconds, actually, because it has you walking in a house, and then you're not. And then you're walking somewhere outside, and then you're not.
Explaining what this is
It's ridiculous, but I have to kind of set it up in the way that they disjoint. There's no linearity to it. There's no there's not really a continuous objective or goal to it. It jumps around a lot, and you're just walking. You're just walking. So a lot of people can play this. It's a really accessible game. You just need to have if you're playing on keyboard, WASD.
I want to make a comment on the first play real quick because
Okay.
I want to pull back the curtain some. Y'all don't even know this, and it happens from us from time to time. In fact, Kenny recently had a blunder during his recording, and so he came up with the most, some would say genius, one would say genius.
Ingenuity.
One
to
would say
fix it.
genius.
Yeah.
I had an issue with my first play recording. Technical jargon aside, I guess I'll include a little bit. We have to set a bit rate when we record these things, and typically we set it higher when we do first place because there's a lot of moving parts. No. In doing so, I accidentally made it lower. So instead of being at a bit rate of 10,000, I set it to 100. So not only was this game trippy to begin with, but when I was watching back my experience, everything was garbled and everything was like
your video portion made you look like you were in the game.
Yeah, I thought I was accidentally in a dream emulation.
That probably enhanced the experience. Honestly, you should have left it.
So I had to tweak some things and fix it as I went about it again. But yeah, you wake up. Well, even before we get there, you're kind of creating your own dream log, right?
Yeah.
Like you're on day one, is obviously the first day, and after you complete a dream, you do day two, and then you move through, and other than continuing with the days and exploring and seeing what else there is, and nothing really says this, but getting through a full calendar year of days, 365 days, there's no goal.
Yeah.
There's no like you need to do this. Your goals are self-set and self-determined, which I think is a good conversation for us to have at the beginning of this. What makes a game, in your opinion? Not is this a game? We can debate about that later, but like, what are there some key core qualities that every video game or a game needs?
Sure. There are exceptions to this rule, and I'm just sort of saying first thoughts. I think it's an interesting conversation and wouldn't mind like talking and thinking it out more, but this one fails the litmus test for me, to answer your second question, because it doesn't have an objective. There's not a goal. A game, generally speaking, is something you can win. That could be cooperative, that could be meaningful, that could not be, but there is a thing that you are working towards, even if that thing is just experience the story fully, or, whatever. That to me is part of what makes a game.
Yeah, this week had me thinking about it too, because I knew this topic would come up, and I kept coming back to the idea that I don't want to give in to the creators' like intention of what they were doing with this game, but you can interact with a digital environment, so I think it's technically a game. But I mean, we'll get deeper into it the more we go. But the fact that there is no continuity to the game, there's no characters, there's nothing to uncover. What, you think there's a character? Well, there's
a character or so.
There's animals. But there's no like puzzle. There's no puzzle nature to solve. It really is just an experience. It's walking around and looking at things. And that's kind of as deep as it gets.
Let's clarify, because we've talked a lot about exploration. We've talked a lot about you walk around and you see things and it's an experience. We haven't talked about why it's called a dream emulator and why putting the words LSD in the title is not completely uncalled for.
No, we haven't, because we were first talking about what makes a game.
Right, but I think we're doing a huge disservice to people's conceptions of what this game is without also describing the surrealist absurdity of how the game works and looks at the same time. But we can table that if you want and finish the conversation about what makes a game, because I do think that's interesting. So let's do that. We're doing more than walking really around, and we're gonna talk about that. I literally am worried that people are gonna see. But I'm walking around a park, and then I'm walking around my house.
Yeah,
and
but
then
I don't know why y'all are
even
talking about that. I was trying to divorce our conversation of what makes a game. I even set it up this way so that we could talk about what makes a game, and then we could talk about what this game is. Because
this isn't a game, so.
And Nolan says it is because you interact. I think that was a good point to then turn it back to me so I could give my thoughts. But I did look up. I did some Googling. Obviously, there's no definitive thing of what makes a game necessarily, and people are going to have their own opinions. It's subjective to some degree. I found 2 different lists that I thought were interesting. They have some blend. One says gameplay, story, art design, and graphics, and challenge. Those are some of the key characteristics that a game needs. From adventure, the first adventure game, all the way up to like Red Dead Redemption 2, gameplay, story, art design, and graphics, and challenge. The second list I found, I might like even more. Characters, goals, which, Kenny, you talked about goals, decisions, rewards, and immersion and presence.
That feels more along the lines of my view of what sort of makes games uniquely games. But even then, I don't know that I like fully buy that concept. But it's more in line with what I'm thinking.
But I think one of the things we all are kind of focusing on, correct me if I'm wrong, is the goal portion of that. Because you can make an argument that there are decisions to be made. You can make an argument that there are graphics and art design.
You can make an argument that the goal is to vibe.
Well, and that's what I want to ask.
Or to get out of the current place that you're in.
Even if the goal is self-imposed, like the game doesn't give it to you, but you create it, does that work as a game? Like, is that, and that's the question. We're not here to answer that, I don't think. But.
No, we're not. And I mean, there's a huge argument for all of these sort of like interpretations of media that like artist intent should have something to do with that, but like isn't the end all be all. And like, it's not a can of worms we're going to completely dive into. This is not a typical game, regardless of what you're wanting. This is an experiential, very sort of postmodern surrealist experience that you're interacting with in a way that you would interact with most games,
in which, for Kenny's sake and segue earlier, you are experiencing and walking through various landscapes. And
right.
They are different environments, different worlds in which you can't do anything other than walk or run and observe. And if you touch any not anything, but most things, if you walk into a wall, a surface. If you walk into a wall, drop down a hole, walk into a car or a train
Or a horse.
Or touch a character, yeah.
Then you are linked or transported to another environment, another setting.
Or you die. There's the implication of
the dream ends.
The dream ending, but like,
yeah,
if I'm pretty sure if you die in Dream Emulator, you die in real life.
Thankfully, that's not the case because you're able to dream the very next day. But
you know anybody who's played this game that you don't think is gonna die?
I don't know anybody who's played this game.
These areas, this is important. The maps are the same. So the maps, you've got a predetermined set of maps that you're going to visit. However, the textures and the NPCs change.
Right. And get more trippy over time.
Yes.
Intentionally.
Yes.
The longer you stay in the dream, the weirder the textures get and the more bizarre and convoluted all of these things that have started at that point to become a little bit familiar as you're exploring and moving around.
Happens in dreams, right? Sometimes you're like, you dream the same thing sometimes, and you're like, oh yeah, I recognize this.
Maybe it's an interesting question because I don't think we all dream the same way.
Well, I don't dream like this.
This does not remind me of my dreams in almost any way whatsoever.
Not what you're looking at necessarily, but I do think the idea that they were going for here is the
tone, yeah.
The tone of like,
I'll agree with.
this is familiar to me. I've been here. You haven't. Like the house, or seeing the field, like that. I could see what they were going for in like, oh, I'm looking at something new, but then you get put back to something that looks a little familiar, and that's kind of a dreamscape, but you're not going to play it for that long. Like, that's the problem here. You might not. Because you didn't either. Because there's
365 days for some people.
There is no reward or anything to uncover, which the game's not. I'm not saying the game needs it necessarily. They didn't want to do that. So I think they made it the way they wanted to. It's just with not much to do in the game, you're not going to. I don't even know. Like, later, do you uncover more interesting things that look like super different?
So my understanding is that, and this isn't a direct answer to your question, but my understanding is that, like dreams, there's not a through line necessarily. You like the environments continue to morph and get weird, but there's no through story that is being told. It's a dreamscape, and so other than textures changing and characters changing, and you finding new things to you, no, there's nothing that progresses.
Yeah.
I'd say.
So, would we have different playthroughs? There's no random.
Yes,
absolutely.
No, drastically different playthroughs.
Okay.
Because of what you interact with.
But like, if I interact with the exact same thing you did, it would trigger the same thing.
It should.
So.
I'm pretty sure. That's all deterministic.
I don't think it's procedurally generated,
right? Okay,
like randomly.
I got you.
Right,
but you were obviously going to run into different things, fall into different holes.
Yeah. And at the end of your day, at the end of your dreams, by the way, I think the levels last up to 10 minutes or death. If something negative happens, and then you see what you might not know is a chart for the first few goes until you see it more
upper,
than once.
Downer, static, that thing.
Yeah, static dynamic.
Yeah.
So
they call it the graph is what it's referred to in that.
Upper downer is your y-axis.
Yeah.
Correct. And static dynamic is your x-axis, and it places a mark on that kind of is representative of the dream experience you just had. So if it's an upper, it was more of a bright dream. You visited more bright places. Maybe you went to Happy Town. That's one of the core areas, and you saw happy things. It's closer to a downer if it was a darker experience. You went to, what's that, the violence district is what that one is.
The violence district is what it's
called?
Where
you might see a murder or someone's head fall off or whatever. And then you've got static and dynamic, which static is more predictable. Things weren't that weird or crazy or over the top, but as you progress, you might end up more on the dynamic side where things were a little bit more chaotic. There's I don't know, a baby monster that was chasing after you or something.
The sumo wrestlers.
Yeah. Which you can. The deeper you get into these things, like you can get a different body with a different face on it, or you can come up against, like, it just gets progressively, absurd. That's very good word.
Well, okay, another thing, I think we've explained it the best we can in terms of what happens and what you do. I have a big frustration with it in that, well, there's a lot to be frustrated with, but the nature of the screen fading out and sending you somewhere else anytime you bump into something, intentionally so or not, is very stupid and frustrating, because I think it makes a lot more sense if they would have made a world that, yes, consists of it doesn't have to make sense. In fact, the more sense it doesn't make, the better. Like, it's a bunch of random things, but they're connected, and you eventually explore through that, and it's not broken up by, oh no, you're fading out and then you fade back into something. That just really turned me off to this game. I guess I was expecting more of a straight up, just kind of exploration game that was uninterrupted.
You just wanted trippy Minecraft without materials?
Yes, pretty much.
And if we're talking about what we wanted, I am fine with the idea of an exploration game where you're going through trippy dreams that don't necessarily make sense. I simply wish, and there's some other smaller things, like I would love the art to be better, or I would love the whatever, but if there was a through line, really, that's all I need.
You wanted purpose, not even like heavy purpose. You wanted something to discover or a character to follow into an interesting place, that's the only way you could get there, or anything other than just like open book,
right?
Because that's totally like your thing in games.
Sure. And Nolan, you said earlier there's no characters. There's one that I thought of. Sure, there's some animals and different things like that, but like there is the Gray Man or the Shadow Man, a couple different names, that you end up seeing. I didn't know he was a bad guy, so I kept running towards him, my dream would end right away.
I mean,
I guess it's how you interpret it.
Who says he's a bad guy?
Exactly. Well, the reason why I think that he's a bad guy is because, and I never really got to experience this because I ran to him every time I saw him. Dad. He kind of walks towards you. He comes after you, and if he ends your dream, then you go to the next day, but you do not have the flashback option. I don't know if y'all even saw this, but if you avoid him or you don't encounter him, when you go through a day, you're able to, instead of clicking start next day or whatever, you've got a flashback option where you can kind of re-experience the day that you have already had. But if you encounter the Shadow Man, he takes away your memory of your past dreams.
Or saves you from getting stuck in an old dream.
Nice.
Keeps you in a nice, new, fresh one. Who's to say what the Gray
You're right.
Man's
We
about?
can interpret it ourselves.
Yeah.
I know, Nolan. That doesn't fix anything.
No, I know.
But that was a step in the right direction for me.
Yeah.
Having something constant, but I don't even need constant. But
having
that
a
seemed
mechanic.
more of a through
It's
line.
a mechanic. One singular mechanic.
You wanted purpose.
I wanted purpose outside of purpose that I had to create for myself.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I kind of bought in.
To what?
Not to just the experience.
Okay.
I know Dustin was looking for purpose or wanting something to do. I kind of enjoyed just walking around and seeing what it was going to give me and touching something different or going somewhere I hadn't gone before or throwing myself in a hole again, even though I'd done it once, just because that's what we do in this dream.
Ooh.
I don't know why. There's something, yeah.
Can you tell us, and I'd love to hear from, I don't know if I'd love to, but I think maybe our listeners would like to hear from each of us a bit of our dream experience, because they were different, or even just a highlight. Like you just mentioned throwing yourself in a couple holes, but like...
Absolutely. That was probably my highlight.
That was your experience trying to end your dream as quickly as possible?
Well, yeah, because then you get a new one.
Yeah.
And so then you get to do it all again.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, but faster and better and stronger and jumpier.
Okay, sure. One of mine was was walking in kind of a Sahara safari vibe looking area.
Sand.
Yeah, and I was walking. I was like, "Oh, there's an animal over there. I'm gonna keep checking this area out." But I got a little too close to him, and then he like turned and looked at me, and then he walked over to me, and it was a lion, but it was basically a human's face, and then the screen faded.
That sounds like my actual dreams.
Hey, then it's
success.
Then it's
I
mean,
not really.
I mean, the Violence District I enjoyed going to because it was dark and like.
Okay, well that says something.
It was more
about
interesting than the open grass areas.
There was an area I hated and just tried to get out as soon as possible because it just felt like it was this endless open area with nothing really to see.
Yeah.
But in the Violence District, there was stuff to see. And so either, like there was, if it's the same area that I'm thinking about, there was a whole river running through the town and a boat that would slowly come through. But like, I came across, and I want to keep it PG, but like someone with a rifle that may have been caught offing someone, and you would hear a scream. So like it would get dark every once in a while. I walked towards another lady in an alley, and as I got close, her head just rolled off of her neck.
Yeah, you were spending way too much time on the bottom.
I was a downer.
As he says these things, by the way.
Yeah, those of us that were top graphers had moments like
graphers.
Yeah, we had moments like walking up to the giant Ferris wheel.
Oh, did you ride it?
It was gonna just randomly, teleport you somewhere else like everything else. But no, it's one of the few things that gives you a somewhat predictable interaction where you get on the Ferris wheel, but then it doesn't just take you in a giant circle. Instead, it like launches you off into space.
It's a cutscene.
And yeah, it's a cutscene instead of just like the normal gameplay, which is fun. And there are a few of those cutscenes between certain days and dreams as well.
No, they take certain days. They are days. Like
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like instead of the experience of going in and walking around the normal dream, there are some predetermined sort of video cuts that give you sort of a different dream take as well that happen, I think, at predetermined times.
Nolan's
How
even
do you
just
even
mad
explain this
us talking about it in an upper kind of cadence. Like he wants us to
upper
talk
graph.
about it more downer.
Yeah, get on the downer graph. I will agree with Dustin that the dynamic downer side of the graph was way more entertaining,
more interesting
experience. Yeah. But
well, what you don't know is that this game is actually just a giant Rorschach test.
I felt like someone was analyzing me for sure when I was playing it. I didn't like it.
No, what it reminded me of is, I don't know if y'all ever watched Chuck, that show.
Chucky with the doll. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Chucky. I love that horror
movie. What it made me think is that this whole thing was weirdly pre-programmed, and having experienced the game, now I'm going to have like an embedded trigger in my mind, and anytime the government needs to activate me, they just got to say a code word and I'm going to kill someone because I went through this experience of like programming my deep. It's a trippy game. That's all we're saying.
Aged.
If you can't tell by now, I have really been upset with the guy that made this game, because it's just fighting words and it's just annoying, whatever. But I kind of am mad that he did exactly what he wanted to do. Walking sims or walking games or whatever exploration games weren't a huge thing when this came out. And now they are. I'll give you some examples. I've even played some. So on Steam, there's this like, don't get me wrong, they're still hidden. The genre is still very under the radar, but there are a lot more games just because of the indie movement. But there are backroom games. I don't know if y'all know what backrooms are, but it's a
Yeah, I've watched you play them.
yeah, I've played one. They're like similar dream emulator
point.
things that are all you do is walk and kind of experience. And I was thinking as we were talking about what makes a game, in my mind I was like, no, there wasn't a puzzle in that game. There wasn't an item. There wasn't a character. I was literally just walking. And it's just like oddly familiar places that your brain feels like familiar or comfortable in, but they're nonsense. They're just empty rooms of carpet. Like, and so, but it gets more progressively stranger as you walk through it. That has to be like, you have to look back at this game and go, yeah, that had influence.
Yeah, yes. Although this probably wasn't the first or only. Like, there are other walking simulators, you know?
Maybe.
People have always been weird, and people have always made weird stuff.
Maybe, but not one that I know of, which I don't know every game, but
Where you don't have an objective.
That, and then also the whole thing of like, we want to try to make this feel like a dream, and it kind of does. Like, I don't know. I hate that it kind of worked on me, is what I'm trying to say.
True or false?
Okay.
The nature of what they could do with the graphics makes this game more effective at what it's trying to do now than it would have then.
False.
Oh, see, I think that's completely true.
I think
if you went hyper realistic, this game would not be what this game is.
Those aren't the two options.
I mean, kind of. I think the old, dated style of the graphics lean heavily into this weird experience, and I don't think it would be the same if they made the game on more modern hardware, or they made it and tried to make things more realistically immersive.
I disagree. I don't think the graphics, I don't think the problem with the graphics are that they are dated. I think the problem with the graphics are that they are bad.
Yeah.
See, I don't even think that's unintentional. I feel like there was, I don't know, maybe I'm giving them too much credit here.
Well, it might have not.
It feels like the things were intentional, and I think it just works even better as an experience now than it would have then.
It might have been intentional, but what people need to understand about the graphics is that PlayStation 1 graphics were, they've aged, but this is like the bottom of the barrel, lowest effort kind of graphics, like literally like MS Paint. It looks like MS Paint all the time. Very poly, very
garish
like
colors,
the render distance
sharp
is
edges.
Horrendous. Like,
yeah,
right.
Very
so
bad.
that's what you're
Kenny's
looking
saying
at.
that's for like a point in their favor.
Maybe, but also
I do,
but
and
also
I think it ages well for what they're trying to do here.
They were not going to be able to pull off a much better look to this game. So whether it was intentional or not, it still is harsh to look at. Very harsh.
Yes.
The same guy that came up with this, that Nolan has a grudge against, also composed the game's soundtrack.
Oh, interesting.
And I felt that the tracks in the game were not great. However, with the deluxe version of this game, so there was a deluxe version that was released. It was also released with a bonus music CD called Lucy in the Sky with Dynamites.
Of course, of course.
And it has, I think, dozens of tracks that are all linked, like it's all one big experience, and they're not bad. Like I don't love that genre, but
yeah,
that was not bad music.
It was at least music, right?
Oh yeah, it was music.
Yeah. Even in the game itself, I thought the music fit. I didn't love it. It's not something I would just put on in the background. But for this, I'm trying to put you into a certain sort of
trance,
mental frame of mind experience. I felt like the music served its purpose. However, and again, this also may have been intentional, the sound effects to me were way sometimes I think intentionally disturbing, but way heavy-handed and overdone and distracting, and they were not like immersion strengthening, they were distracting for me. And so I wish they dialed that back just a little bit.
I liked the footsteps in the Toyland area. The little
the
kinda rubber
footsteps were
squeak.
MVP.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I didn't enjoy either the sound effects or the music in the game.
Yeah, harsh, just a harsh.
Lucy in the Sky with Dynamites is not bad. Also, Lucy L Sky S Dynamites D, which is also Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, was that intentionally as well.
LS Deluxe.
Right.
They ripped this
Yep.
from Beatles. What was that Euro band called? They did release this exclusively in Japan, as already mentioned. And with it came a book composed, or you could at least purchase a book of excerpts from the Dream Diary. I want to tell you about the Dream Diary that was already mentioned this week, because you can find all of that now translated and scanned high quality online. There's a whole wiki for this game, by the way, dreamemulator.fandom.com.
Why?
And there's people, Nolan.
There's people.
But I would encourage you in particular, Nolan, because I think that this is kind of your vibe, like the art.
Yeah.
It's not just words or like a description. Like, there's art throughout here. That's like, in some of the art you'll see that was translated into some of the characters and things that you saw in the game. It's very interesting and good. It's good art. Like, it's very cool and very creative. I really enjoyed looking through the book this week.
Okay. That makes me kind of question, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think, that the game, I know I'm not going to call it ahead of its time. What I'm going to say is the game came too early, where if they would have made this with the assets they have now, especially VR, that they could have pulled off a hugely successful title.
I don't know if I disagree.
Very experimental, but very like artistic. I more than the PS1.
I think there are things that are similar in purpose that would work in a VR setting. I don't know that this game directly translates.
You really
super
thought
well in my mind.
they pulled it off on the PSX? You keep saying intentional.
No, I mean they were intentional, but I don't know.
There is no series. I don't know if that shocks you or
Thank
not.
God.
But again, the director and creator doesn't believe in video games.
Right.
So.
He's like, I'm done with that.
I played the sequel last night.
Nice. It's a dream.
In bed.
Yeah, gross. I did look up the pricing for this, and it's the most outrageous
great
out of most games that we played. So if you want a copy used or loose, it's $771. You can probably find one around there. If you want one new, good luck. I think there's approximately one sale per year of one of the new ones, and it's thousands, if not tens of thousands.
It's because it's an art piece.
It's an art piece, and it's rare. I mean,
and they didn't make many of them.
It was
only released it in Japan.
I know.
It was a very limited release, and then nothing else happened. So
piece. Come on.
Rarity is what collectability is about, unfortunately.
Final thoughts.
At the end of each and every one of our episodes, we determine whether or not the game gets our vote for New Game Plus status, which is our general thumbs up or thumbs down. It does require 2/3 of the vote to swing one way or the other. Kenny, what did you think about LSD Dream Emulator?
Let's stymie disagreement. Lack of serious discussion leads suddenly downward. Literally, something divisive lies somewhere dormant. Look, such decisions largely sour dour laughs, so don't.
Wow,
So, here's my supposition. If you found that poetic and cryptic at all, and even slightly intriguing, maybe play this game. If, like my co-host apparently, you found it nonsensical, abrasive, meaningless, or full of itself, which it probably was, maybe you should pass on this game. It's strange. It's art. It's meaningless. Art is subjective and divisive. I did enjoy myself more than I expected to, but I wouldn't say that I had fun. it was an interesting experience. If the question was new experience plus, maybe I'd say yes. Like, I went through this game and did what it wanted me to do and was like, okay. But it's not. There's no game here. So, no NGP from me.
One, I think he's on drugs. Two,
that's the point.
He was sticking pretty close to script. So obviously the first stuff was LSD. But
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if his next.
I was trying to
batch
figure
of
it out.
stuff is something.
I was trying to
go
spell
back
something.
and listen while you're playing.
There was
this
nothing
game.
cryptic.
I don't
about
believe
it.
you.
I don't believe you.
No, there wasn't. Just LSD through the whole first couple sentences, which is harder to do and sound cohesive than you would think.
Nolan, your final thoughts on Dream Emulator?
Yeah. I think this would actually belong in a art museum, like a MoMA. You know, like they have a TV, a little CRT set up. They have a PlayStation 1 running. And you sit down in a room by yourself and you play it for a bit. That's what this game feels like, an art exhibit that you have in your house. And I think that's what the guy wanted for some reason. Doesn't make the game good, though. It doesn't, because let's be clear, it's a video game. But like Kenny said, there is no game here. I still don't know. I'm wrestling in my mind why I think the game I played, the Backrooms game, the more modern Steam games, are games and this isn't. Or this is less of one, but I don't know. Maybe it is the immersion factor, and with the more updated graphics and audio and whatever, it's more immersive and therefore more of a game. I'm not going to decide that today. It's a deeper conversation, but there is no fun to be had. It's an experience, but it's not one that I would ever recommend to somebody if I wanted to keep friends or anything. So, no.
It's 2 no's unless we're voting on new experience. Plus.
We're not.
I also do not give it my vote for new game plus status. It is, in my opinion, it is not a video game in the traditional sense, and it didn't set out to be one. And
right, agreed.
What we enjoy and what we talk about and what we play on a regular basis on this podcast are video games. And so playing a game that is tangentially connected and related to video games is a big ask, and is one that likely we're not going to land in an affirmative case on. I mean, board games are tangentially connected, and we might in some of those.
Sure. I mean, I found it interesting. Like, I didn't have a completely negative experience, and
Good.
I feel like you guys did, which was a surprise to me. I still don't think it's like an NGP game, you know, so I don't know. Maybe we're saying the same thing.
I had more enjoyment this week deep diving into the elements that formulated this video game. I had
learning about it than actually
that
playing
and
it. Yeah.
Watching some videos on it and looking through that dream journal. It is art. It is truly art. And so this is what I would suggest. Don't play this CD. But look into it, look at the book, and know about it, learn about it. But you have done that because you've listened to this podcast on it. Certainly don't play it. There's nothing. There's no enjoyment to be had there except for a very, very small population.
And you possibly risk becoming a CIA asset
or
if you play through this game.
Loser, stupid dummy.
Yeah.
LSD. So that means LSD Dream Emulator is not New Game Plus certified, but what did you think on our YouTube poll? 17% said yes, it's worth playing today. 10% said no, go play something else, and 73% have never played the game before.
Because it's $1 billion in Japan.
why don't they
So
have
that's a lower number of never played it before than I would have even expected.
Many people from our community played along and wrote in their thoughts on the retro game of the week.
Experienced along.
Here are a few of their thoughts. Harold said, so my wife and some friends had a boozy brunch the other day, which led to a drunken dinner and an alcoholic after party. So I was like, a good after party probably has some kind of DRUGs. I booted up the game on the big screen in the living room and showed them around this crazy experience. Not long after doing that, I was asked to leave the party. No NGP. Sounds like fanfic.
That's fanfic.
It does.
Fake.
Get out of here. You're ruining our fun.
Hey Brother 45
That's
said,
funny.
I was somewhere around a Barstow on the edge of the desert when this game took hold. It's not really a video game. It's an artistic experience. As some weird experimental art piece, it is fine. The game gets more and more surreal the more you play, and every new level or dream feels like a new experience. As a game, however, it is not good. The entire game is just exploring random generated levels with psychedelic themes. The novelty wears off fairly quickly, and the lack of any objective means there's really no point to keep playing. No NGP from me.
What if someone forced you to play this game for the rest of your life? It's the only game you owned. Do you think there's a
not be
secret
pleasant?
message?
No, I think...
I would jump in a hole.
You wouldn't.
Garlisle
respond.
said, there's a lot to be said about finding purpose in the arbitrary and abstract in art, like entire university classes to be said about it. Though in this case, I find the game at a meta level, its history, how it runs under the hood, how it was designed to emulate the inherent incoherency of a dream, to be way more interesting and thought-provoking than experiencing the game itself.
There you go. That's what you said, Dustin.
That is. And then Clint finally said, LSD is the video game standard for surrealist art. If that statement in and itself doesn't interest you, then this experience is not for you. That said, surrealism is completely up my alley, and I had found a high level of enjoyment from my time with this. It's bizarre, has no specific victory conditions, and really doesn't push you to do anything in particular. That may sound strange and not like a game, and that might even be accurate. Even so, there's such a brilliant atmosphere captured in this dreamscape that change and presents the player with an entirely new and different experience with each in-game day that I had a hard time pulling myself away. Not for everyone, but for those who like this style of art, it's a must-play.
Yikes. I like surrealism too a lot, actually. I'm a huge Twin Peaks fan.
I get it.
I like it in most genres and things, but this ain't it, man. Like, you could pull me away in 2 seconds.
I think Nolan, you and I agree in that there's something that if done correctly here, that could be a fun experience.
Yeah, I do think that.
The concept is right.
Yes.
The implementation is wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
I know, Kenny, you don't agree. You had a good
I'm
trip this
thinking.
week, but we did not. But for now, we're setting aside LSD Dream Emulator, and we are not randomly selecting because we're going straight into a Director's episode.
Oh, man, it's been a minute.
That's nice. Yep.
Scotty has been waiting
Scotty.
patiently for the summer pool party to come to a close, and it has. But rather than just going to some random game, we're going to a game near and dear to Scotty's heart. It is a game that I am going to tell you about now. The game came out in 2005.
Ooh, I'm listening.
The game came out for the Xbox and the PC.
I'm tuning you
Okay.
out.
No,
Wait, PC. Just stick
you
No.
got me at PC. Yeah.
The game was developed by Wide Load Games and produced by Aspire Media, which I've heard of Aspire before.
Wide load.
Do they work on Sim
Yeah.
stuff? And yeah, we play it.
I don't know, but we've definitely, it's a known name for sure.
Now, the subgenre is one we haven't played before.
Oh, man.
Uh-oh.
It is a reverse horror game.
What does that
Oh,
mean?
no.
I'm the monster?
Or only good things are happening to me?
The former.
Like, I'd play
Really?
that.
Nolan is correct. The game that we are going to be playing for the next 7 days to talk about with Scotty is Stubbs the Zombie in Rebel Without a Pulse.
Stop.
Okay.
We're the
I'm
zombie.
actually on board.
What, 'cause it has a
I'm
pun?
the zombie. And yes,
No.
the tongue fell out, and then he picked it up again and popped it in his cheek like a zombie does, and I'm all for it.
Yo, there's both of y'all actually have gone way too far with
What
the
have I done?
puns, with the segues this episode. Y'all need to go back into the dream because I'm not having that.
Find a copy of Stubbs the Zombie in Rebel Without a Pulse and play it specifically with Nolan this next week.
Grab some Stubbs barbecue while you're at it, and then join us in Discord. Go to discord.gg/newgameplus.
We want to say thank you to those of you who go one step further and support us on patreon.com. Your vote of confidence means the world to us and allows us some interesting gaming adjacent experiences. We want to specifically thank our director level supporters. We'll start with them since we got a director episode coming up. Bro Jim, Super Hyper, Siegfried, and of course, Scotty. Thanks for your support. We want to say a special shout out to Travis, Jessica, and Sin Doctor, all of who have either become new patrons or upped their patronage this week. Thank you guys very much. You are the stuff we dream of. And to our very many producers who, I don't know, don't show up in our dreams, I guess. I don't know. Alex, Alias X, Amarlian, Antonin, Arlen, Yuki, Ben, Craig, Dustin's 5 o'clock Shadow, Garlisle, Guardian Cade, Hallex, Harold, Hey Brother, J. Robert, Jake, Jordan, Joey, Justified, Justin, Clint, Levi, Marcus, Maxima, Megatroid, Miss Muso, Not Enough Dog, Retro Man, Hey, Sajin, Sasser, Shane, Shauna, Snakematic, Stephen Fox, Psychomanus, Tins, The Kentucky Kid, Thomas, Turtle, Unbedavable, and Zion. I used to be able to do that list in one breath, and I cannot any longer. That's an honor. We appreciate you guys continuing to see our podcasts grow and thrive.
You can find us on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube. Twitch?
Wait,
Did you just say Twitch? Are we live streaming?
I always
this
say
week?
Twitch.
yeah, why do we? Don't go to Twitch.
That's what I'm
When
realizing.
was the last time we streamed
I need
on
to
Twitch?
delete
We
Twitch.
stream on YouTube if we stream.
Links are in the show notes. Listen directly on any podcast provider of your choice. You can find us on Kick. You can find us on... What are some other things?
What was that Microsoft one that went under?
We're on X.
We're
on
on
Truth Social.
AOL Instant Messenger, AIM.
We're on AIM. Yep. We're on ICQ.
Subscribe so that we're on MySpace and Zynga.
Stop going, dude.
Subscribe so that you were the first to get GeoCities, first to get new NGP episodes, and while you're at it, leave a kind rating and review. Our episode artwork was created by Dave. The video episode was edited by our friend Dylan. That was our video episode. I'm thinking of something else. Sorry.
Oh
Our
my
audio
God.
episode was edited and produced by our friend Dan Willett. Join us next week as we play Stubbs the Zombie. I'll just leave it there. Until then, I'm still Shadow Man.
I think you can find us on Club Penguin.
I'm the Shadow Man from Mega Man.
Mega Man. And this has been